Oh, romance. Oh, this is Us and Us, writing effective romance in games with Amanda Gardner. But before we get to Amanda, I have an announcement. We have added a portfolio review with Lee Amarakun at 7 p.m. Eastern on our Discord. Lee is currently a VFX artist, but has worked on it as an environmental artist and lead designer. And you can check out his ArtStation portfolio. And you can hop into the Discord at 7 p.m. Eastern time. It's discord.gg/indiegamebusiness, and he can review your work. All right, Amanda, I'll let you have the floor.
Thank you so much. I am so excited to be here. I was just telling Dan how much I loved ECGC in Raleigh and how it was just such a nice conference and such a beautiful city. And hopefully we will all be there next year. But since we're not, why don't we enjoy ourselves a bit here? So my talk is called Trust, Lust, and Ust, Writing Effective Romance in Games. And it should say and beyond, because I feel like a good story is a good story, a good romance is a good romance, and you can kind of apply these principles across media. So let's do this. All right, so a little bit about myself. I am the narrative director at the Deep End Games, and in 2017, I wrote Perception, which is a horror thriller about a blind woman who can use echolocation to explore the haunted mansion from her nightmares. And it came out across all 4 systems, and we were pretty proud of it. We made it in our basement, so it was kind of exciting to see it, you know, especially on the Switch. I really like playing horror on the Switch because you can get under the covers and be creeped out. So speaking of under the covers, I happen to be writing Romancelvania, which we announced this fall and had a really successful Kickstarter in October. And Romancelvania is exactly what it sounds like. It is a Metroidvania with dating elements, and it's really fun, and I'm going to talk more about that later. And it's coming out in 2022 across all of these systems. And speaking of romance, I happen to be a romance writer. So I'm uniquely qualified to write Romancelvania. And the last little bit about my own romance life is I am married to Bill Gardner. And he was the lead designer on BioShock and the design director on BioShock Infinite. And he was the creative director on Perception. So a little bit about me, background about me. I have 4 kids. I do a lot of speaking about health and wellness and meditation and mindfulness. My past ECGC talks have been about that. And yeah, Mama 4, Army of 1, that's me. Let's get after it. So warning, this is a thirsty presentation. I'm not saying that it is, you know, in any way graphic, but we do have some sexually frank conversations because, you know, we're going to be talking about lust and whatnot. So if the kids are in the room, maybe send them in another room to watch Bluey or something, depending how old they are. I love Bluey personally, but all right. Let's talk about ships, okay? So I am, in addition to being a writer, I'm also a teacher. And so when I do presentations, I like a lot of chatter. So please, I want to use this chat liberally so that I can hear about your ideas and your thoughts. And so throw it into the chat. I would love to know who are your favorite couples from movies, TVs, games, whatever, and that captured your imagination enough to ship them. So yay for thirsty presentations. All right, all right. So in a minute, I'm gonna okay, so Ripley and the Xenomorph, that is really interesting. I think that they don't have a lot of trust, but we can talk about some other things that they may have. Sephiroth and Sailor Saturn, you just blew my mind. I'm shipping Sephiroth and anyone, but I like this crossover ship. Very good, very good. So yeah, as I mentioned before, we are going to be talking multiple medias here. So Mustang and Hawkeye. Okay, I'm actually going to be talking about Hawkeye in a little bit. So, oh, Avatar, that's one that's on the checklist, never done. But this is great. Keep it coming. Yes. All right, so I'm going to show you guys a video for me that changed everything when it came to shipping and trust, lust, and us. Spider-Man and Deadpool. Oh my God, I'm here for it. Never thought about it, but I'm here for it. All right, let us watch. You can keep the ships coming though as we watch.
I gotta go.
You want to tell yourself that so you can quit with a clear conscience, you can, but you're wrong.
Why did they assign me to you in the first place, Mulder? To debunk your work, to rein you in, to shut you down.
But you saved me. As difficult and as frustrating as it's been sometimes, your goddamn strict rationalism and science have saved me 1,000 times over. You kept me honest. You made me a whole person. I owe you everything. Scully, you owe me nothing. I don't know if I want to do this alone. I don't even know if I can. And if I quit now, they win.
Something stung me.
Oh my God, that bee, that bee. Okay, let's talk about what makes this work. Trust. This is the big element for Mulder and Scully. So despite her skepticism, Scully is Mulder's biggest supporter. She is there for him. She doesn't always believe what he's saying, but the fact that she goes through all the motions with him and she helps support him, and they may have different ideologies, but that trust is unbelievable. And in this scene in particular, Mulder makes him so vulnerable. He admits things to her about his need for her in his life, not just as a partner, but as a partner. And this was a really sweet scene too, because you had that hug before the near miss kiss, and that was just two humans, you know. And the way she kisses him on the forehead, it was so tender. So lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of trust involved. Now let's talk about lust. So yes, they're incredibly attractive. I like to define lust as what is there, and ust is what is not there. So what is there, we know, if we've been watching the series, that Mulder has some real interesting sexual proclivities. So by knowing the fact that he's kind of kinky, it sort of puts that little seed in the audience that builds the ust later. So we sort of put what we know about Mulder, about lust, and sort of it helps our imaginations quite a bit. At least for me, it did. And lastly, that near miss kiss. I remember being a teenager watching that and being like, that was the hottest thing that's ever happened, and nothing happened. Oh my God. That's what I'm talking about with us. And that's why I think it's so magical, because it really gets our imaginations going. And a lot of these characters that I'm seeing you guys ship were never together, and so that unresolved sexual tension is kind of exciting, right? So yes, I believe that trust, lust, and ust are the pillars of not just a good romance, but characters that are shippable, because you may not put these characters together. Your game may not even be a romance, but if you have these elements, you can really get an excited and engaged audience. So my philosophy is that two legs can't hold up a table, right? So you need trust, because if you're invested in these characters, you want them to feel safe in each other's hearts, right? You want to know that that character you love is not going to be burned by this other character. So you have to have trust. And if you don't have it, you have to build it. I'm going to get to that. Secondly, lust. Because if you don't have that chemistry, people aren't going to buy into the relationship. They may not even think about the relationship because you need at least a little bit of that attraction, right? And lastly, without us, you don't have a reason to ship because they'd be together. And of course, sometimes you have characters that are together, but then have all these hurdles thrown at them. I'm going to say that's still us, even if they've slept with each other. And I also have a philosophy on that. I don't think that sleeping with each other is the end of the relationship. You know, a lot of times it's like, oh, fade to black, that's it. I have achieved fade to black. Well, not exactly. Like, relationships continue, and you can still have us. So even though you need all those three elements, one of them can and should be low, and that is about growth, okay? That is where your story comes from. That's where your growth comes from. So building that trust, building that lust, building that us, that is where the magic happens. So first I'm going to talk about something called limerence and use a reference from the movie Lovebirds, which I really, really love. I think it's one of the highlights of the past few years. I'm going to do a little case study in trust, and I'm going to show a great scene with Spike and Buffy. Lust with Jim and Pam. Now, don't hate on me for saying that there's not a lot of lust. It's more in the trust and the us with them. So just bear with me. And then a case study in us, we're going to talk a little bit about Morrigan and why her situation in Dragon Age is interesting. So limerence. I love talking about limerence. Limerence is fascinating. In case you've never heard this term, limerence is the cocktail of hormones and chemicals that happen in your body early on in a relationship where you feel super sexual, super into them. It's like obsession and you can't stop thinking about them. So that is not, when that starts to go away, it's not because you're bored with each other. It's literally because the chemicals in your body have slowed down. Much like when a mother gives birth, she gets this dose of oxytocin, which helps her bond with the baby. That's what limerence is on a chemical level. And so the reason why I'm showing Lovebirds is a great study. I mean, the acting is fantastic. Issa Rae is she just kills it. But Lovebirds, which is hilarious as well, is a great study in watching sort of all different arcs with trust, lust, ust, and limerence. So at the beginning, their relationship actually starts out with a one-night stand. So it's not like building to the sex. It starts off with a one-night stand. Then they start to like each other. And then you see the limerence. They're super into each other. They're moving in together. They have it all. And then it's, you know, you see this picture on the left here where they're both on their phones looking bored in an elevator. That's when the limerence has hit a low. So that would be low ust. They may have high trust because they've been together for a while, but they do have their issues, so that fluctuates. And definitely no ust, because why would they have unresolved sexual attention at this point? And then the two of them, I'm not going to give too much away, they kind of get kidnapped and go on the lam. It's hilarious. It's wild. And they have these moments where you start to see, because they technically break up before that happens, you see them using their trust to get out of these crazy situations, having a little bits of us because, oh, we've broken up, but like I'm starting to like bond with her again. It's just amazing. It's a really, really great case study in watching all the three levels of trust, lust, and ust. Love it. Must recommend. Now, I think that this is my favorite deficit to fix, which is low trust. It's very common in a lot of romantic tropes, like fix the bad boy. So we're going to watch a great scene with Buffy and Spike that has no trust. But let me tell you, there's quite a bit of lust here and some actual lust. So what I want you to do is, while you're watching it, look for the lust, look for the ust, the unresolved sexual tension, and throw it into the chat as we're watching. So I think that could be really interesting. And I'm going to talk about it, obviously, but let's watch.
So, you saw their faces, but you can't describe them.
Well, they were human. 2 eyes each, kind of in the middle.
Uh-huh. And the lab?
Underground. I came out through an air vent. I don't know exactly where. I'm done. Put the telly on. It's about time. Hope you got it warm enough. I don't know why you're so dainty all of a sudden. You've done this for Angel. You must have.
Okay,
Hey, give it.
that's it. The invalid amnesiac routine is over. The kitchen is closed until you can tell me something useful about the commandos.
I'm trying to remember. It was very traumatic.
How long are you going to pull this crap?
How long am I going to live once I tell you?
Spike, we have no intention of killing a harmless creature, but we have to know what's been done to you. We can't let you go until we're sure that you're impotent or...
Hey.
Sorry, poor choice of words. Until we know that you're...
Flaccid?
You are one step away, Missy.
Giles, help! He's going to scold me. You know what? I don't think you want us to let you go. Maybe we made it a little too comfy in here for you.
Comfy. I'm chained in a bathtub drinking pig's blood from a novelty mug. Doesn't rate huge in the Zaggett's Guide.
You want something nicer? Look at my poor neck. All bare and tender and exposed. All that blood just pumping away.
Oh, please.
Giles, make us stop.
If those two don't kill each other, I might lend a hand.
Okay, throw into the chat what you found effective about this scene or any incidents of lust or ust. Let's start to break it down. So I think what first strikes me is that Spike is chained up. He's got those handcuffs. And if you have an adult mind, there's a good chance that you think handcuffs may be sexy or at least sexual in nature. There's that. Then there's the little amazing subliminal bit where the mug says, kiss the librarian. So you have the word kiss in the scene, very subtle, which I think is subliminal. Thirdly, Spike is making aggressive eye contact with Buffy while he's sucking that blood, right? Definite some tension there. And like I said, like they don't trust each other. They hate each other. They're enemies at this point. So there's aggression on several levels here. Next, let's talk about the fact that he says, you used to do this for Angel. Whoa, super loaded, right? So Angel was also Buffy's vampire lover, right? So we have this whole like, oh, you used to do this for Angel. That kind of gets our imaginations a little bit like, well, what else did she do with Angel and that Spike might be thinking about, right? So much is going on here. Throw it into the chat, guys. I want to see. I'm not seeing anything. I think something else that really, really worked in this scene was when Buffy started to get a little bit sassy with him and sort of like exposing her neck and talking seductively about it. So, you know, the neck is a very kind of erotic area, and vampires inherently have that whole like, you know, they're latching onto your neck, and it's a very sexual thing anyway. And so when she's talking about the blood pumping, I mean, this whole thing is just super, super, super loaded. And I think it did a great job not only to have the, you know, sort of conflict between Spike and Buffy, but to further set up Spike as a future lover of Buffy. And I loved Spike. I absolutely shipped Buffy and Spike way, like probably at this point being like, I know he's bad, but is he bad? Like, how bad is he? So that was that. So eventually they have to fix that trust, because as good as the lust and us were, it's not enough to really give them a relationship, but it's certainly enough in the minds of the people watching to be like, yes, give me more. At least for me, right? All right.
So,
nope,
you
we're not
saw
going to
their
watch it
faces,
again.
but you...
Okay, Jim and Pam. Like I said, don't hate at me. Jim and Pam are amazing, perfect, and wonderful. But there's not much in the way of actual lust between them. There's tons of trust. In fact, it comes through the screen at you because they make eye contact with us, right? It's not even that we're watching them, like they're talking to us. And you form these bonds of friendship that honestly, I think that it's so effective in the office when they're looking right at you. You feel close to these people. They trust each other and we trust them. Lots of trust between Jim and Pam. Let's talk about the unresolved sexual tension. Jim and Pam have always had crushes on each other, but you know, Jim had a partner at one point, Pam had a partner at one point. They kept just missing that bus, right? That doesn't keep us from absolutely salivating over those two, though. They're so cute and they're just so wonderful. The low lust is also compounded by the fact that they're in a very mundane setting. So we talk about offices being kind of like a drag, but a paper company, there is nothing sexy about working at Dunder Mifflin. There is nothing sexy about that. Jim and Pam also have that really great everyday person vibe. You know, they're not played by actors or actresses that are like hypersexualized. Pam's clothing is very conservative. Jim's clothing is very conservative most times, but I'm going to talk about that in this clip. So let's watch this clip. And again, throw it into the chat. I want to be able to see what people are saying about these clips. I want to know. So throw into the chat any comments you have, ideas, thoughts on Trust, Lust, and Us in this scene. I love this scene. Lust in the office. Yeah. All right.
Dunder Mifflin, this is Pam. Just one moment, I'll transfer you. I haven't heard anything, but I bet Jim got the job. I mean, why wouldn't he? He's totally qualified and smart. Everyone loves him. And if he never comes back again, that's okay. We're friends, and I'm sure we'll stay friends. We never got the timing right. You know, I shot him down and then he did the same to me. But you know what? It's okay. I'm totally fine. Everything is going to be totally fine.
Sorry. Are you free for dinner tonight?
Yes.
All right. Then it's a date.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I love it. Okay, so I'm finally, I had to move some things around. I can finally actually see the chat, so thank you. All right, that was so adorable. And the smile at the end, yes, yes, yes. Okay, so let's talk about this. So what we see in the beginning is Pam genuinely gushing about Jim. How he's smart, he's kind, he's wonderful. Like we're all sitting there being like, I know he is. We love that. Oh, and the lip bite. Okay. Okay. So we're just loving how sweet Pam is being honest. And then she gets real with us. She's like, it didn't happen, but it's okay. Like I want him to be happy. I want him to get that job. There's so much sweetness and so much trust there. But then the moment Jim opens the door and Jim is in a suit, okay? Jim often has like kind of the crazy hair. It is like slicked, it is styled, and he just looks like $1,000,000 in that suit. And he pops in, and you don't get the usual kind of goofy Jim, like, hey, like making jokes. He comes in, he looks her right in the eyes, and he's like, you want to get dinner tonight? Oh my God. Jim finally brought the lust here in this scene. That was hot. He was very direct, almost alpha in a way that we never see Jim. And then when we see Pam's face, it's like a mirror of our own face. We're all just like blushing and oh my God. And the way she just sort of flushes and just sort of says like, I don't know, what were we talking about? It's just the cutest and sweetest, and it's just so wonderful. And it's a great example of how our minds often fill in the blanks, but when we get that sweet dose of what we needed, amazing. Total payoff, totally wonderful, and just It just makes me happy. It makes me giddy. Very sweet. It's more wholesome than lustful. Yeah, I definitely think wholesome's the word. But I think that a lot of people who ship Jim and Pam, I think you fill in the blanks, because I would love to see that date. And the contrast between her saying it's fine and then her face not saying it. Jared, you're so, of course, great comment from Jared. Thank you for coming. 100%. 100%. I love it. No, I do not have a YouTube channel. But thank you. All right, I'm going to move on to the next little bit. Okay, super interesting stuff here, because we're going to be talking about Morrigan. I don't have a clip, because I did have a clip and I wasn't crazy about the editing in it. But Morrigan is a really, really fascinating case study here, because she, in Dragon Age, is available to sleep with you. Like, she doesn't mind getting right to it. And so we talk about like how you have to have real balances, especially if you're going to do this sort of inverted lust thing. You're not like, oh, when can I get with Morrigan, blah, blah, blah. She's like, no, I'm DTF, like whatever. But there's very little trust, because the reason she's down to sleep with you is because she wants to get pregnant and use the child in some kind of ceremony. So you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, that's a really interesting twist on that. So what they do, and I think that this is really, really smart, is they won't let her, she chooses to not sleep with you if you gain enough trust. So you get to this point with Morrigan, whereas if you have shown her tons of kindness, if you have shown her tons of trust, she actually backs off and is like, you know what, let's not do this. And I think that that is really, really, really fascinating. And I just really love how they inverted so many tropes here. And I think it's a really cool case study. Like I said, the video I had it didn't do it real justice. So yes, love Morrigan. I personally chose Morrigan, I believe, in my first playthrough. Okay, so let's talk about ships that go down, not in a good way. If one or more of these components of lust, trust, and us are too low, it may not be redeemable. So sometimes trust cannot be rectified in a believable manner. Some people are sort of beyond trust. And I have to say, guys, a lot of this is in the execution. And I never like to belittle any writers at all, but sometimes you just don't have the skill to get that over the edge. Like, so for example, trust cannot be rectified. I am a sucker for a good villain. Oh my God. Like me and Loki fanfic right now. I love, love, love Loki. But Loki does some really bad things. And I think Loki's particularly interesting because they never actually put Loki with a love interest, but that's because it's me, guys. All right. Anyway, sometimes a villain can be just too bad to be redeemable unless you really retcon some stuff, right? But I do love a good turn the villain good story. Secondly, sometimes lust is not enough to overcome some other issues. And finally, too much lust can be manipulative and actually turn your audience off. So if you can think, I'm seeing some Loki love in the comments. I have received so many comments because I do talk about this topic a lot from people being like, I was on this ship, but they just kept delaying the relationship too much that it broke my immersion. And you never want to break the immersion, in my opinion. You want to like keep delaying it in a satisfying way, like the way they did with Mulder and Scully, like, oh my God, they were finally about to kiss, but then they be. But if you can only do that for so long, like Mulder and Scully do eventually end up together and then not together. But I don't want to get into like that most recent season of X-Files. I'm in a happy mood right now and I don't want to squash that. Anyway, so let's talk about some relationships that just don't work. Okay, guys, let's talk about Anakin and Padme. And I'm not even going to mention the scene about the sand. I'm going to talk about why they fundamentally, as characters, do not work. Okay, so number one, they don't have beliefs and values and passions and motivations that dovetail or completely go opposite each other. It's almost like what they're interested in is parallel to each other, if they had that fundamental belief in something that they could really bond over, I think that would have made a huge difference. So worth mentioning. I don't know if you ever watched, if you're a writer and you don't watch Wisecrack videos on YouTube, like, you've got to get on that. Wisecrack had this great video on Padme and Anakin, talking about how George Lucas wanted to make their relationship like the relationship in Dr. Zhivago. And what Dr. Zhivago does is you have these two kind of people coming from rival sides, but they come together over a shared virtue of compassion. And that just makes it so tantalizing that they're on these different sides. But Anakin and Padme, I mean, they're kind of working towards the same thing, sort of, kind of. Low credibility is big here. We don't trust Anakin. Why should Padme? Anakin's kind of ambiguous, sometimes up to no good, really easily influenced by the wrong people. Like, we don't trust his sense of judgment. And then there's, like, if I'm being honest, there's the squick factor. I am not a fan of May December romances in either way. That's just something that, like, it doesn't do it for me personally. But a lot of people watched, like, little boy Anakin and teenage girl Padme, and then in the next movie she's kind of like, you've grown, and he's like, you have too. And it's just like, it doesn't work for me personally. It may work for you. No, not particularly judging, but I think that they could have been a little bit more deft about that age difference and age gap. Then let's talk about, and this isn't something that the writer did, but, like, it was really flatly acted. I think that, and, you know, Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman are both very talented, but in this case, they just didn't have the chemistry and the chops to really make a relationship that did not work on paper work on screen. But I had some ideas of what could have made this relationship work. Okay, number one. If you can make Padme jealous of Anakin's devotion to the Jedi Order, you get used. If you see him sort of like pushing her off, being like, no, I can't, and I'm so devoted to the Jedi, you kind of get her being like, oh, I wish he felt that way about me. There's just no us there, right? Second, make Anakin less desperate for the love of God. He's an open book, and he wants her so badly. Like, give us a little bit of, like, the cold shoulder, Anakin. Maybe turn the desperation down just a little tiny bit. Back and forth power struggle would have made it fascinating. These are both very powerful people. You've got a former queen and a senator. Like, flex that a little bit. You've got somebody who can wield the universe in his hand. Come on, let's see a little bit more power struggle. Somebody I'm just noticing in the chat from the Spike thing, they said that the power struggle was amazing. Agree. It could have definitely, this could have used a little dose of that. Next, show a little bit of Padme's vulnerability. You know, she's being attacked. She's had a lot of loss in her life. Let's see her open up in a vulnerable way to Anakin. And lastly, show that they somehow complete each other or fill in a need. There's no reason for them to want to be together other than, like, what's up? You're hot. So that's that. Let's talk about the next one. Hulka burning. I do not get this one. And I want you guys to throw into the chat why. If you think that this did work, please tell me, because I do not think it did. So there was no context. This relationship came absolutely out of left field, and it's not even in the comics. And I'm not the kind of person who's like, well, if it's in the comics, you know, it has to be in the films. This was just, it's like somebody had an idea, like, oh my God, what about Hulk and Black Widow? And somebody was like, let's try, why not? It's so random. Secondly, there was zero chemistry between the characters, even when they were trying. I mean, listen, ScarJo is smoking hot, right? I would normally ship her with anyone, but I just didn't get it with Banner. Like, there was nothing, there was no chemistry between the two of them. And yes, Michelle makes a good point in the chat. We didn't get enough time with them together before to get this emotion and attraction building. Context is so important. And I actually have a slide later on about context. And yes, she did have an entire scene of chemistry with Captain America, for sure. There was also no purpose to this. I do not believe this served the story. Oftentimes, I will write a romance because it serves the story. And most decisions I make as a writer always come back to, does this serve the story or does this not serve the story? And I'm going to say that this one did not. So let's workshop this together. I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds because we don't have tons of time. Throw into the chat what you think could have made this relationship work if they changed a few things. So let us see. Oh yeah, the Black Widow infertility thing was definitely that was a thing, and I'm not crazy about the way they handled that. Okay, so Suzanne says they have shared emotional conflict over the love to hate myself thing worked for me. Okay, so that's good. That is something that did work. All right, great. Yeah, the Hawkeye thing. The Hawkeye thing definitely, I think in the eyes of the fans, most fans did ship her with Hawkeye, and seeing Hawkeye with his family and whatnot definitely, you know, kind of closed that off, because I think once you involve children, that's tough. So Kayla says, that's one thing I hate is on many screen ships, they have no chemistry, they have very few scenes together, but they're head over heels in love and destined for each other. Right. That's really good. This is great, guys. Is there anything that you think could have changed and made this better? More sexual tension established in the first Avengers movie, yes, versus the fear she had for Hulk, 100%. I actually started watching some old scenes, and the scene where he comes after her when he's in Hulk mode and she is cowering in the corner, we've never seen Natasha terrified in this entire series except for that. And so I don't think that's a great way to kick off. And also, speaking about kicking off their relationship, the way they were introduced was she lies to him on behalf of S.H.I.E.L.D. and tricks him and has a little girl like lead him into a building, and she was lying to him. It was ridiculous. So it says they were originally in a relationship, but in the movies it wasn't given a ton of time to even exist. I actually heard that they did write scenes in Infinity War that sort of wraps up their relationship, but they didn't even show it. Hulk being vulnerable, that would have been good. That would have been good. A scene in Avengers 1 where Banner tried to care for Widow after he hulked out on her. That would introduce more trust and compassion. Andromeda, I love that comment. Fabulous. You guys, this is great. This is awesome. I am going to move on because we do have some more slides to do. Okay, let's talk about David. I love David and Patrick so much. Let's talk about why David's former relationships in the show led up to Patrick. So we have in the upper corner this scene with Jake. Now, Jake was a really hot guy who was super into David. David was super into him. It was all lust because they got right to it. No us, no need for us. And secondly, there was no trust because Jake was also sleeping with Stevie. And Stevie is David's best friend. And Jake had no problem with this. Jake was very sexually open, but Stevie and David, they're kind of like, I don't know. I think they called themselves a throuple, like a three-person couple, which I just thought was adorable. But yeah, so you had David and Jake, which was like nothing but lust. And then below, I love David and Stevie as friends. But David and Stevie did hook up together. And that was, you know, all trust. Definitely some us, like, because they had some like kind of near miss moments, but it was more like they had this amazing friendship and they took it too far when they were high and drunk. But it was hilarious. But then those two ones that were off were to set up the perfect relationship of David and Patrick. And I just love David and Patrick so much because there is so much trust. They're business partners. There was definitely some lust early on, and then we definitely saw lots and lots of us grow before they kind of confessed their love to each other. Kayla says, I love how they handled the David and Stevie thing because you could see Stevie kind of pining over him for a while David was oblivious and moved on. I love that. That's so good. And I'm so glad that you guys are on the David and Patrick train with me because I just think they're so stinking cute. All right, we're going to move on to common tropes. So these are things that you can pull out of your little romance toolbox and see visually the difference between the UST and trust in the tropes in general. So friends to lovers. This is a great one to start with lots of trust and then build the lust and UST. A lot of times friends to lovers is like, oh, I can't. He's my brother's best friend and I knew him since he was a kid. Or I can't, you know, she's my office mate. We could never. So you have that. It's got a little pinch of forbidden love in there. Next, we have enemies to lovers, which I personally really love because Spike, right? Lots of lust, lots of UST, but you have to fill in that trust. And a great exercise for building of trust is in Blake Snyder's book, Save the Cat. Save the Cat is named after the idea that if your character like saves a cat and does something redeemable, instantly characters are like, they're cool, I'm down with them. So if you could have your enemy, you know, do something like one tiny little nice thing, that can really, really help that. Arranged lovers, this can really vary, so you may need to fill in all three, or relationships of convenience that turn into true love. Reunited exes, hot, lust, UST, got to rebuild that trust because they're exes for some reason. Forbidden love is always a good one. Lots of trust and lust. You got to build that UST because they want each other. Like the lust is clear, but they can't be together for some reason. Oh, enemy. Kayla says enemies to lovers, chef's kiss, love it. And then there's just a fling, like they get together sexually from the start. Where does it go from there? So you guys, once again, I got to recommend Lovebirds because that they start off with the one night stand. So what we're going to do next is I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I use trust, lust, and UST in Romancelvania, which is my game. So Romancelvania is, like I mentioned before, it's a Metroidvania with romance elements, but it's actually a dating show. So imagine if Dracula were the star of The Bachelor and you have Romancelvania. So it's a dating show. You have all these sexy contestants. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how I incorporate all the tropes in the game. So the two characters that are at the forefront, they're both Dracula. You can choose which Dracula you want to be. So first, my favorite, I have, like, they're all my favorites. Like, you can't have a favorite kid. So this is Vess, and she is the off-duty genie. She has had a rough go of it, and she's basically on a staycation. So she like, does not want love in the game. She's like, I'm just here for the margaritas and the quiet time. So trust, she's the bartender you can confide in. Vess actively seeks the friend zone. So Drac can really open their heart to Vess. Lust, she hasn't gotten laid in 2,000 years, so there is lots and lots and lots of talk about it, but not being able to do it. And then there's UST. She is cursed, and she cannot be physically intimate. But for me, that is the friends to lovers trope with a dash of forbidden love. I love, love, love Drac and Vess, and I hope you ship them as well. The dead pirate Robert, and yes, that is a reference to The Princess Bride. All right, so Robert is a sexy pirate who literally plunders actual booty. He wants your body parts to augment himself because he's very vain and very hot. And so when a body part just starts to rot off, he just goes and finds a new one. So you can't trust him because he literally wants your bod. I make a lot of dumb jokes about this. Lust, I mean, look at him. I think that everybody in our Discord server pretty much ships Rob as the hottest character. And then UST, he's a bodybuilder. So a lot of your conversations, like literal bodybuilder. You always just talk about nothing but calves and buns and triceps and whatnot. So they're the enemies to lovers trope. And it is very fun to watch. So enemies to lovers always has witty banter. So watch for the witty banter. PSL, the Kinky Pumpkin Witch. Okay, so this started out as kind of a joke. I have an obsession with the flavor of pumpkin spice, and I was like, we just need like a big old pumpkin boob character named Pumpkin Spice. And then my team made it happen, and like dreams do come true, people. So I thought it would be funny if she was a scarecrow because they're tied up, right? So she's a kinky pumpkin witch. She's never, ever, ever serious. So it's hard to build that trust because you can never confide in her because she'll just make a joke. as far as Lust goes, she's DTF. Like, so she has no problem with sleeping with either Drac at any point. I should mention that all of the characters can date all of the characters. We do not restrict you in Romancelvania. Player choice is important. Lastly, DTF means down to 5. So she moves too fast is the us factor. So it's almost like Morrigan, like, oh, okay, well, where do we go from here? It's building that trust and building that long-term love and finding out why exactly is she a pumpkin. I had somebody ask me last time I gave a talk, they were like, is there a pumpkin in the behind? And I was like, oh, 2 pumpkin bum. Yeah, we never show it, but yes, she has a pumpkin bum as well. All right, Medusa the Nihilist Gorgon. So this is the exes to lovers trope. There is no trust because Medusa, you left her thousands of years ago after Perseus cut off her head. So the quest in the game is to find her body, which is pretty funny. Lust, yes. When Drac and Medusa were actually together thousands of years ago, they had a smoking relationship. And so there's always that allusion to like how good it used to be. And then Ust is, can you get past your past? Can they rebuild together? So that is how I do that. Oh, thank you so much, CJ says it looks bonkers brilliant. She does want to get stoned. I do make those jokes. You guys, I pun hard. So like it's happening. Yeah. Okay. So this is a clip I wanted to show from Raiders of the Lost Ark because I wanted to show how important context is in a relationship. And like, there's no trust between Marion and Indy, but there's great Ust. Unfortunately, it's really kind of getting, we're talking a lot, which is amazing. So I am going to actually just recommend look up this clip. It's really incredible. Great for Ust, great for character development. Oh, Kayla, thank you so much. This is great. You guys are awesome. So I'm going to skip this, unfortunately. Look it up on your own. I'm trying to skip it, but it won't let me. Oh, and I'm going to have to skip this one too. Chaste makes waste. I am going to talk about it though. Twilight brought the thirst, and I know there are haters. I know they exist. But what Stephanie Meyer did changed the world. She created a character you wanted so badly, but could not have because he would tear you to pieces in all the right ways, that it spawned an entire revolution of erotica. So in case you don't know the backstory, and I also have to say, E.L. James is my actual friend. We are friends, so I'm not bashing 50 Shades. I'm talking about how it came about. So Twilight came out, and because Edward and Bella couldn't get it, it created so much unresolved sexual tension in the collective of people who are reading this that it spawned a huge fanfic movement that spawned this huge boom in erotica. So E.L. James, she read the Twilight series, and she would go home every day and she would write her sexy fanfic because she wanted Edward and Bella to bang, because we all did, right? Like, by we all, I mean me and my friends. So anyway, she came up with this super hypersexual fantasy where he was a billionaire dominant, right? And the fanfic world just exploded, obsessed with this story. And then when it was published, it brought the Edward and Bella-ish relationship, only Anastasia and Christian, and it became a worldwide phenomenon. And so I really think Ust changed the world in the past 10 years. So I'm a big believer in Ust, and I think it is pretty cool. And yes, 50 Shades of Grey. Sorry, just to clarify. And yes, I'm just noticing your comment, CJ. I agree that the Lucas and Spielberg Kasdan meeting is unbelievably problematic, and I have a problem with it, of course, but the scene itself, if we're just taking context out of it, the scene itself is outstanding. But yes, it is 100% problematic. And I'm glad that they did not allude to any age of the relationship. Anyway, this kiss scene in Twilight, which I'm not going to show because we don't have time, is super hot and super usty, because just when they're really getting after it, he has to fly off of her because he is going to murder her. We don't want that. We just want to watch them kiss. All right. Oh, I missed the slide. Hold on. Okay. So this is the TLDR because we're about to go into Q&A if we have time. Decide what your character's romantic journey really is. Are they building trust through learning more about each other? And like, why them? Why can they find this together? Or are they cultivating a really satisfying physical relationship after years of friendship or similar interests? Or are they fighting their physical impulses and urges and circumstances, but ultimately want to be together? You have to choose, and you have to balance, and it's all up to you. So combine these powerful elements for a truly shippable love. And I would love to take questions for as long as we're allowed to. So Q&A. Hit a girl up. I'll be watching the chat. Question time. Okay, I'm just seeing a comment that 9/11 inadvertently caused 50 Shades. 9/11 is what made My Chemical Romance. Oh my God, I love My Chemical Romance. Oh my God, I love My Chemical Romance. Like so much. Like my musical choice is that of like a 13-year-old girl from like 15 years ago. Okay, so if anybody chats about this stuff on a regular basis, you're chair of the romance. And oh yeah, you have a Discord. I would love to get involved in that, Michelle.
This really seems like something that you're just a little teeny bit passionate about.
Maybe.
Maybe. All right. So here, let me get this question here from Zaid.
Yeah.
Any resources to recommend for further research on this topic?
Okay. So for the topic of us less interest in general, I actually don't have a handy resource, but writing resources in general, the two things I throw out to everyone, Save the Cat by Blake Snyder and Story by Robert McKee. So those are my story Bibles. Save the Cat helps you with the outlining process. And there is a bit about the B story and the romance in there. And the second resource, Story by Robert McKee, dives really, really, really deep into the beats of a story. And I think that can help in general. But Zaid, if you have any questions for me, I just put my slide up with my information. I love to talk. I love to answer questions. And so you can find me at Amanda S. Gardner on Twitter. You can email me, amanda@thedeependgames.com. And I would personally love to talk about this. And who knows, maybe I'll write something on the subject. I did mention before that I'm an author, so who knows, maybe this will take me in an interesting direction.
And so your husband is like, no, you're not living up to my romance expectations, right?
Hey, I'm going to live up to my own expectations.
Okay, here's a great question. How do you make sure that relationships don't overrun the character, but complement them?
Okay, so every choice you need to make, ask yourself, does it serve the story? And is it true to this character? So yeah, you may want to stretch a character a little bit, and that's great, that's growth. But if what the character's doing is outside of what you would normally consider who they are, then I would ask yourself, like, if the relationship is really working. Also, overrun but complement. You want to treat, even if you have a protagonist and a love interest rather than two sort of on equal footing. So Romancelvania is tough because I think I have like 12 to 16 dateable characters. So I usually typically come back to Drac. What does Drac want? And how can this character sort of complement them? But if they're on the same par, you want to sort of give them both equal respect and consideration, and really do that backstory digging and thinking about their contexts and their worldviews and how they got to where they are.
Let's see, here's a good comment I wanted to ask, but basically the important thing in a relationship is to show the spark of interest, the continued interest and bond growing, and for there to be a payoff to that relationship. And you know what? You were talking about the relationship between Anakin and Padme, and I was always like, that's empty. It's empty. There's something you don't really care about them. And that's exactly. And then you broke it down, and I was like, oh yeah, like if he was a little less Padme, and she was a little bit flawed, that would totally have done wonders for that.
It really would have. You need that shared interest. So yeah, Sigma, that's a great question. I think that you did sum it up really well. And it's interesting you use the term payoff. So I agree and I disagree. So I think that you need to eventually be like, okay, this UST is going somewhere. But at the same time, I'm not a fan of the like, well, they slept together, story's over. I think that people are complex, stories are complex, characters are complex. So I think that it's boiling down, writer's tips can be dangerous because you never want to go too far into a trope that it becomes a parody of itself. Do you know what I mean?
Or it just becomes a super known stereotype.
Yeah,
Everyone's like, oh yeah, I saw that coming a mile away.
Yeah, you want to keep it fresh. So yeah, I would say like, take these to heart, but then also like your own your own spin and your own take, and like, oh, I would love to see a fresh take on this trope. I've never seen a fresh take on this trope, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
What I don't like is like when there's a great romance in a movie or whatever, and then one of them dies at the end before it ever closes. Oh, I hate that so much. It just
it's kind of like
breaks my
permanent
widow heart. Yeah, breaks my widow heart.
Yeah.
Here we go. I want to write for games in the future, but I don't have a lot of romantic experience. Can that hinder the realism of the romantic story?
Not at all. Not even a little bit. What I would say is read within the genre. I think that there are some really fantastic romance. So also, let's just talk about romance because I feel like there's such a stereotype associated. Romance can be in many different genres without being a romance blank. So I wrote paranormal romance. I wrote new adult, which is like college age. Like I wrote for a variety, but also I wrote urban fantasy, which is not romance, but my urban fantasy probably had more lust and trust in it than my actual romances. So I feel like read some things that you find interesting and romantic and exciting, and it doesn't have to be a romance novel, but there's nothing wrong with romance novels. There's such a stigma attached, and I hate that. So I don't know what genres you like, so it's hard for me to recommend. But one of my favorite UST relationships is in the Shatter Me series by Tahereh Mafi, and she's got this great setup of like you the character should be with Adam because he's the right guy, but then there's this villain Warren, and I told you guys I'm a sucker for villains. Warren is so unbelievably hot and bad, like he's bad. I don't know how she manages to redeem him, but she does. That's got some really, really great UST. I also like I feel like I have a lot of recommendations, but if I don't know the specific types of things you like, then it's hard for me to recommend. So, but yeah, if you don't have a lot of the experience, that doesn't matter. Read, play, game, have fun, and just sort of dig in. Yeah.
So we're running out of time, but I just want to make a comment. Everyone's saying you need a YouTube channel.
Oh.
There's multiple people saying that in the chat. YouTube channel, where you break down romantic stuff. I think you should too. I mean, romantic novels and romantic stuff is not like my wheelhouse, but I found this super interesting, and that would actually be a channel I would watch because you're entertaining and fun.
Oh my God, you're killing me here. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's pick one question. I'm just gonna randomly go, bam, and then after this, will you be in the Discord and fielding questions too, if you want?
You know what? I will join the Discord. I haven't had time. This is April vacation for my kids, so I've been a little bit busy, but I should go off and join the Discord so you guys can hit me up and I can answer all of these questions.
All right. So usually what we do is we have post-session chat in twitch.tv/indiegamebusiness. That's the Discord we're using. So here we go from Matthew. How do you feel about games that offer only one romance option for the player to pursue or refuse? Ever play Tales from the Borderlands? That is a good example.
Okay, so I think games work within the constraints they have, and I think that that's fine. I personally want more options. That's why, in particular, like for me, I don't even play dating sims. I like games like the BioWare games like Mass Effect and Dragon Age, where I can play the game part and then spend some time, in the hub worlds, romancing whoever I want. Like I'll hit Garrus, like whatever. I like having all those options. But for me, like my studio's philosophy is like we love gamer choice, and but that's me, and that's one of the constraints we chose. So every single game you have to pick your battles, right? And I think Tales from the Borderlands, they had a lot to tackle. So like one romance,
right?
That's where they drew the line. And
every character should be able to romance every NPC in every game ever. I mean, that would be great, but
She's
you know,
over there
that's a lot of
baking
work.
bread,
A
like
lot
you
of
can buy it, you can talk to her. Like I think
yeah.
that's
It doesn't
cool.
matter what, like
Battle
alien
of
race or whatever, you know, that would be awesome. But thank you so much. We are out of time and we have the next talk coming up. So thank you so much, Amanda. This has been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you so much.
Oh my God, you guys, this is great. I'm gonna go join the Discord and then we can all chat. All right.
Ooh, yes.
Yay.
Then you can ask the really thirsty questions, right?
All right. Don't be afraid. I do not bite. Only my characters do.
Yeah. Thank you so much.